Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a closer look at something that's been generating a lot of buzz, Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much everywhere you look these days.
It definitely is. And I know a lot of you are curious about what it actually takes to get started with it. Well, we happen to have some excerpts from a Microsoft Learn article all about, you guessed it, Microsoft 365 Copilot requirements.
Handy.
Super handy. This article is dated September 16th, 2024, so it's pretty up to date. And get this Copilot thing is integrated directly into apps like Word, PowerPoint, and even Teams.
Yeah, I think that's what's got everyone so excited.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So let's dive in and unlock the secrets of this AI powerhouse.
You know, one of the things that makes Copilot so interesting is that it's not a separate application you need to learn. It's right there, baked into the Microsoft 365 apps you probably already use.
So no need to juggle multiple programs. That's awesome. But okay, let's talk setup. What do we absolutely need to have before we can even think about using Copilot?
Well, the article lays it all out. First things first, you got to have Microsoft 365 apps up and running.
Makes sense. Copilot's all about enhancing those apps, right?
Exactly. It's not a standalone thing. Now, besides the apps, you'll need a Microsoft Entra ID account. You might know it as Azure Active Directory. It's basically the same thing.
Okay, so it's all about verifying who's using this powerful tool. Security first. Makes sense. What else?
Don't forget about OneDrive. It's really important for features like, file restore and just managing your OneDrive stuff within Copilot.
Gotcha. So Microsoft 365 apps, Microsoft Entra ID, and OneDrive. Those are our must-haves, our foundational trio. Anything else before we start talking about how Copilot actually works in specific apps?
There's one little detail that's easy to overlook. You know those third-party cookies?
Oh, the things we love to hate.
You gotta have those enabled, especially if you want Copilot to work its magic in the online versions of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint.
It's always those browser settings that get us. All right, now let's talk about where Copilot shows up. I think people are really curious about its role in, well, all the different apps. Where should we start?
Let's kick things off with Outlook. Copilot, and this is interesting, works with both Classic and the new Outlook, whether you're on Windows or Mac.
So it's flexible. It's not picky about which Outlook you prefer.
Yeah.
That's good. Any limitations, though? Got to be some fine print somewhere.
Oh, there is. The article specifically mentions that Copilot in Outlook only works with your primary mailbox that's hosted on Exchange Online. So none of that archive, group, shared, or delegate mailbox stuff.
Important to know. Right. What about Teams? Everyone's using Teams these days. How does Copilot work in there?
Buckle up, because Copilot in Teams is ready to go on multiple platforms: Windows, Mac, the web, even your Android and iOS devices.
That's convenient. So no matter where you use Teams, Copilot's there. Are there any special requirements for Teams?
Yeah. Here's the thing. You need to enable transcription or meeting recording beforehand if you want Copilot to reference past meeting content.
Oh, so it needs that history to give us helpful insights. Makes sense.
Right. Okay, let's move on to Teams Phone. Did you know Copilot can actually help out with VoIP and PSTN calls?
Wow, it's getting around.
Yeah, but here's the catch. The licensing is different depending on the type of call. The article actually points to another resource for the licensing specifics. Understand Licensing for Microsoft 365 Copilot, it's called.
So the way you make your calls in Teams impacts the licensing. Good to know. What about notifications? Will people know if Copilot is doing its transcription or recording thing during a call?
Oh yeah, they make it clear. For VoIP calls, everyone gets a nice little notification about the transcription or recording, and if it's a PSTN call, everyone hears an announcement, so no surprises there.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
What about Loop and Whiteboard? Those are getting pretty popular for collaborative work.
Right. To make sure Copilot plays nicely with Loop and Whiteboard, you need to enable them for your tenant. The article has some links to resources that walk you through managing those settings.
Excellent. Okay, we've covered the basics. We talked about how Copilot shows up in different apps. But what about the big LNU licensing and updates?
Ah, the important stuff. For licensing, we'll have to refer back to that Understand Licensing for Microsoft 365 Copilot resource. It has all the details.
Got to check that out. What about updates? Is there a special Copilot update process?
Thankfully, no. Copilot updates just follow the regular Microsoft 365 apps update cycle. It's available in all those update channels except for the semi-annual enterprise channel.
So it's all built in. That makes it easy. What if someone wants to get their hands on the latest Copilot features early?
Oh, there's a way. The current channel, preview, and beta channel, those are the places to be if you want a sneak peek at what's coming up.
Nice. So we've covered prerequisites, we talked about Copilot and all sorts of apps, even licensing and updates. But there's one big thing we haven't touched on yet, that network stuff.
The unsung hero of all things tech.
Right. And with an AI tool like Copilot, the network requirements are probably pretty important.
Absolutely. And the article makes a good point about this. Copilot basically uses the same network connections as your other Microsoft 365 apps. So the key takeaway is to make sure your network allows access to those standard Microsoft 365 endpoints.
Okay, so if I can access my other Microsoft 365 stuff, I'm probably good to go for Copilot, right?
Most likely, yeah. But there are a few specific domains that Copilot really needs to work properly.
Oh, okay, so it's not just about general access. There are some Copilot-specific things to consider. What are those domains?
The article lists them out. Let me see. There's copilot.microsoft.com, copilot.microsoft.com, bing.com, bingappeace.com, and challenges.cloudflare.com. Make sure those are open.
All right, we'll add those to the list. What else do we need to be aware of from a network perspective?
This is crucial. WebSockets, also known as WSS. Copilot needs those open pathways for a smooth, responsive experience.
Ah, so it's not just about which domains are allowed, but what kind of connections are happening or
You
not.
got it. And the article warns about certain network configurations that can cause issues, like if you're blocking WSS, doing TLS inspection, or if your proxy timeouts are way too aggressive, you might run into problems.
Gotcha. So we need to make sure those aren't in the way. How can we really be sure that everything's set up correctly and Copilot can communicate the way it needs to?
Well, Microsoft recommends verifying full WSS connectivity between user devices and a few specific domains. It's like a checklist. Let me find it. Okay, here it is. .cloud.microsoft.office.com, .bing.com, copilot.microsoft.com, and .copilot.microsoft.com.
Super helpful. So our IT folks can use that to make sure everything's running smoothly. Any other interesting tidbits about the network stuff?
Oh yeah, there's this interesting note about Microsoft planning to put all the Copilot experiences under the .cloud.microsoft domain eventually.
So they're streamlining things.
Exactly. They're trying to make things easier so you'd only need to worry about that one domain.
That's great. Anything that simplifies network configurations is a win in my book.
Totally. And, the article emphasizes that as long as your standard Microsoft 365 network connections are stable, Copilot should work like a charm.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really making an effort to make Copilot as accessible as possible. All right, this has been a super informative first part of our deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot requirements. We've gone through the prerequisites, how Copilot works in all those different apps, and even gotten into the nitty-gritty of network considerations. But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah, we're just getting started. Stay tuned for the next part of our deep dive where we'll look at the bigger picture and what Copilot really means for how we work. We've been digging into all those setup details for Microsoft 365 Copilot, but it's easy to get lost in the weeds.
It is. Sometimes you need to step back and look at the big picture.
Right, like what does all this actually mean for someone who's thinking, okay, I want to use Copilot, what's next?
Exactly. I think that's where a lot of people are. So for our listener who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all the technical stuff, what are the absolute must-knows about getting started with Copilot?
Here's the key takeaway. If you're already using Microsoft 365, you're basically halfway there. The prerequisites we talked about, the apps, Microsoft Entra ID, OneDrive, chances are you've got those in place.
So no need to start from scratch. That's good to hear.
And remember, this Copilot, it's designed to work within your existing workflow.
It's not about replacing you, it's about making you even better.
Exactly. It's like having a super-powered sidekick.
I like that. Now, the network requirements, those can seem a little intimidating.
They can, but the article does a good job of breaking it down.
It does. It lists out the domains, the protocols, even talks about WebSockets.
All about making sure Copilot can talk to the Microsoft Cloud without any hiccups.
Yeah, and remember that note about them consolidating everything under the .cloud.microsoft domain eventually.
That's going to make things so much easier for everyone.
I can't wait. It shows they're serious about making Copilot user-friendly. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We talked a lot about the technical side, but let's talk about how this actually plays out in the real world. How can Copilot actually change the way people work?
Oh, now we're getting to the fun stuff.
Right, this is where it gets exciting.
Imagine this, you're working on a presentation in PowerPoint, and Copilot's right there helping you create amazing slides, suggesting talking points, even helping you rehearse.
Like having a presentation coach built right in.
Exactly. Or picture this, you're writing an important email in Outlook, and Copilot's helping you get the tone just right, make sure your message is clear and concise, even suggest follow-up actions.
So it's not just about creating content, it's about making it better.
Yes. And think about people who work with data a lot. Copilot in Excel can help you analyze trends, uncover hidden insights, even turn complex data into those cool visualizations.
So it's about making data understandable, not just a bunch of numbers.
Exactly. Oh, and we can't forget about Teams. Copilot can summarize key points from meetings, generate action items, transcribe conversations.
Keeping everyone on the same page.
Exactly. And these are just a few
They're the
examples.
tip of the iceberg.
As Copilot keeps evolving, we're going to see even more amazing applications.
It's incredible to see how AI is becoming a part of our work lives.
Mm.
We've covered so much in this deep dive: the technical requirements, the practical applications, the potential impact on how we work.
And there's still more to come.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll wrap things up and point you towards some resources so you can continue exploring the world of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Stay tuned. All right, so we've talked about how to set up Microsoft 365 Copilot, and we've even explored some cool ways to use it. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to make sure you know about some helpful resources the article mentioned.
Yeah, these resources are like your go-to guides for all things Copilot.
Perfect. So where should people start?
Well, there's this Microsoft 365 Copilot setup guide.
Oh, nice and straightforward. A good setup guide is always appreciated. What else is there?
There's also something called a Copilot lab.
A lab. Now that sounds intriguing.
Right. It makes you wonder what kind of experiments they're cooking up in there.
I'm picturing a place where you can test out all the latest Copilot features, maybe even try some beta versions.
Yeah, like a playground for Copilot enthusiasts. Definitely worth checking out.
Okay, so we've got a setup guide and a lab. What else?
Oh, and there's a Microsoft 365 Copilot Microsoft Community Hub.
Ah, the power of community. It's always great to connect with other users, share tips, and troubleshoot together.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic resource for anyone starting their Copilot journey. You can learn from others' experiences and get your questions answered.
So we've got a step-by-step guide, an experimental lab, and a supportive community. That's a pretty awesome toolkit for anyone who wants to explore the world of Microsoft 365 Copilot.
It is. With these resources, you'll be well on your way to discovering how Copilot can transform the way you work.
But remember, the most valuable resource is your own curiosity. Don't be afraid to explore, experiment, and always think about using this technology responsibly and ethically.
That's such an important point. We're all shaping the future of work, so we need to be thoughtful about how we use these powerful tools.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage everyone to embrace the possibilities. Stay curious, stay engaged, and let's keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.
It's an exciting time to be working and creating, and I can't wait to see what we all achieve with the help of tools like Copilot.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Microsoft 365 Copilot. We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.